Empty sleeve, empty heart. The emptiness started with the blast. Not just the emptiness of my left arm, gone from just above the elbow. An emptiness inside. A void where my purpose, my identity used to be. I was a soldier. Now, just a casualty. The doctors at the military hospital were kind, understanding. They spoke of prosthetics, of rehabilitation. But their eyes betrayed the truth. Nothing could truly replace a lost limb. Nothing could fill the hollowness that gnawed at me. Then they spoke of the trauma clone program. A whisper at first, shrouded in secrecy and hushed tones. They explained how advancements in medical technology could give me back what I'd lost, a perfectly matched limb, grown from my own cells. My heart pounded. Hope, a dangerous flicker in the darkness. A soldier's duty, a man's hope. I agreed to the procedure without hesitation. A soldier follows orders. But beneath the surface, a maelstrom of emotions churned. Hope warred with a chilling unease. Could I truly go back to being whole? The doctors assured me the clone was merely a biological construct, devoid of consciousness or feeling. A vessel, grown for a purpose. Yet the thought of another being, a mirror image of myself, existing solely to serve my needs, left a bitter taste in my mouth. Still, the desire to regain my lost life overrode the unease. I clung to the hope of feeling whole again, of holding my wife's hand, my fingers intertwined with hers, of saluting my comrades, my arm held high. The date was set. The machinery of the program whirred into motion, carrying me along with it. The clone in the operating room. The sterile white of the operating room reflected the coldness that had seeped into my bones. The medical team, faces obscured by masks, prepped me for the procedure. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence. Then they brought it in, the clone. It lay on a gurney, draped in white sheets, its face hidden from view. An IV drip, a steady rhythm of beeps, the only signs of life. It looked so vulnerable, so utterly human. The doctors spoke in technical terms, explaining the procedure, the risks, but their words were lost on me. I could only stare at the figure on the gurney. This being, this copy, would give up its arm so that I could live mine. A hand unlike my own. The surgery was a success. I awoke with a dull ache where my arm had been severed, replaced by a throbbing, bandaged appendage. My arm was back, yet it felt alien, a stranger grafted onto my body. The doctors assured me it would take time. Time for the nerves to reconnect, for the muscle memory to return, time for my mind to accept this new part of me. But deep down, I knew something was irrevocably changed. I requested to see the clone. They hesitated, citing regulations, but eventually, they relented. They led me to a secluded room, a stark contrast to the sterile efficiency of the operating theater. And there it was. Whispers of another life. The clone lay on a bed, its chest rising and falling in a rhythmic sleep. Its left arm, or rather, where its left arm should have been, was bandaged, mirroring my own. Its face was pale, still bearing the traces of anesthesia, but it was the eyes that held me captive. They were my eyes, the same shade of brown, the same flecks of green around the iris. Yet, they seemed to hold a depth, a sadness that I couldn't explain. I reached out, my hand trembling, and gently touched its cheek. It felt cool, smooth, alive. A wave of guilt washed over me, so powerful it nearly sent me staggering back. This was not just a biological construct. This was a living, breathing being. And I, in my pursuit of wholeness, had taken something precious from it. The moral labyrinth. The days that followed were a blur of physical therapy and emotional turmoil. With each successful movement of my new arm, the guilt intensified. The doctors continued to assure me the clone felt no pain, that it would be decommissioned humanely. But their words rang hollow. I spent hours by the clone's bedside, watching it sleep, haunted by the echo of its sacrifice in my own reflection. The nurses seemed surprised by my concern. but I couldn't shake the feeling that I owed this being a debt I could never repay. I started noticing the small details. A faint scar on its left knee, identical to one I'd gotten as a child. A small birthmark on its right shoulder. A mirror image of my own. These weren't just physical similarities. They were whispers of a shared history, a life that could have been. Echoes of humanity. One day, as I sat by the clone's bedside, lost in thought, I noticed its fingers twitch. Then, its eyelids fluttered open. For a moment, our eyes met, and a jolt shot through me. It was like looking into a mirror of my own soul. The doctors dismissed it as involuntary muscle spasms, a side effect of the decommissioning process. But I knew better. I had seen the flicker of consciousness, the spark of recognition in those eyes. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, haunted by the image of the clone's face, the unspoken plea in its eyes. It was then that I made a decision. I couldn't stand by and let this injustice continue. I had to act. A future haunted by the past. The details of the escape are a blur. A stolen keycard, a hurried dash down sterile corridors, a whispered promise in the dead of night. The memory is a tangled mess of fear and adrenaline, punctuated by the steady beep of medical equipment and the thump of my own heartbeat in my ears. We escaped into the night, the clone weak but clinging to life. I didn't know what the future held, where we would go, or how we would survive. All I knew was that I couldn't leave it behind. We were two halves of a whole, forever bound by the shadow of the operating room. I had sought wholeness in a new limb, but found it in the most unexpected of places, in the eyes of another, in the shared silence of our existence. The price of innovation. The world outside the hospital seemed vast and unforgiving. We moved from one anonymous town to the next, always looking over our shoulders, haunted by the knowledge of what we had done and what they were capable of. The clone, whom I'd given a name, a simple human name, was slowly regaining its strength. It was unsettling how easily he adapted to life outside the confines of the hospital. It was as if a part of him had always yearned for it, as if he'd been a prisoner in his own body. But the shadow of our creation hung over us. The ethical questions, once theoretical, now clawed at me with renewed urgency. What right did I have to rob another of its autonomy, its very existence, in the name of my own recovery? The world marveled at the advancements of the trauma clone program, but they remained oblivious to the human cost, the moral quagmire that lay beneath the surface of this scientific marvel. Living with the shadows. Years have passed. We live a quiet life, in the shadows, forever linked by our shared past. The emptiness in my heart remains, but it's different now. It's a constant reminder of the price of my choices, the burden of responsibility I carry for another life. The lines between us have blurred. He is no longer just a clone, a medical marvel. He is my constant companion, a mirror reflecting my own humanity back at me. The world outside continues to chase after progress, often at the expense of compassion. But I am left to grapple with the consequences of my choices, the haunting truth about trauma clones, and the weight of the ethical dilemma that will forever shape our lives.